Hello and welcome everyone. This is Taco Movie Talks. Today we are covering Denmark's finest, Thomas Vinterberg. Definitely a very prolific director out of Denmark and is kind of become a lot more popular, I guess, bleeding into the mainstream with his 2020 Oscar nomination and victory for Another Round. And Ethan, our guest today, and I are going to be talking about three of his movies that are probably his most popular and perhaps his best works. Ethan, we were just talking before we started recording. You have watched, at least a couple of these movies numerous times. How did you first kind of stumble onto Thomas Vinterberg, the director?
Well, Another Round was the first one. I had heard about The Hunt, and just how good that movie was, but I decided to watch Another Round first. That was my first exposure to Vinterberg. Um, I had a confused love for it. It's like I love it, but I don't know if I completely understand the point of it.
That is, you know, it definitely it sticks with you, and I think it's very interpretative as to what point you take away from it. And I felt that way probably most with Another Round, quite honestly. And but there's a bit of that with both the celebration and also the hunt. And something else that I have to throw in, of the three movies we're going to be talking about, two of them are collaborations with Madkinson. Is that how you pronounce it?
It's just Mads Milk. Oh crap. Mads Mikkelsen. Mads
Mad
Mikkelsen.
Mads Mikkelsen. And he is the lead in The Hunt and Another Round, and is really spectacular in both of those. But the movie that was the first Thomas Vinterberg movie that I saw was The Celebration, and man, that is like having a bomb dropped in your lap, pretty much. That is a hard hitting movie, and if you go into it blind, as I would recommend, the big plot point that really drives the story, it hits you like a ton of bricks, in a way that very few other movies are able to do, and he has a knack for that. I would say Vinterberg.
He's a knack for what I'd like to call controlled chaos,
Mm,
where it's like a steady stream of pandemonium that builds up throughout the film until like it's out of control.
it,
He's great with that. He's great with The Hunt, and he did it with Another Round, which is what I love about Vinterberg, as well as directors like Martin McDonagh, who have this sort of ultimatum, and it causes this ripple effect of chaos.
and the beauty of it is Thomas Vinterberg has a handle on subjects that would be very easy to mishandle. And
Yeah.
these three movies, they deal with mature subject material, I guess. And first and foremost, when you delve into those subjects, it's going to be really easy to kind of rub people the wrong way with them. But I never felt that on my ends, because of the way it was handled. It was so expertly dealt with that it didn't feel exploitative, and that's a huge sticking point. Not that can ruin the enjoyment for a lot of viewers, I think.
Yeah, he didn't make a mockery of it. He made it. He takes these situations, these very real situations, and he somehow makes them entertaining and investing as a story without making a mockery of them.
Exactly. On top of that, too, just it feels like it gives you the ability to put yourself in the situation a bit, and you get a feel for the very complex emotions that, on the face of it, a subject like child abuse, which is covered in Thomas Vinterberg has covered that a number of times, and addiction. You get these kind of nuanced in each scenario. On the face of it, it seems kind of cut and dry as to what you would feel, maybe like a one note emotion, but in different situations, that is such a complex situation. And it just makes you realize that as a director, Vinterberg kind of understands the complexity of these subjects, and for any director to handle them appropriately, you have to look at the complexity, I believe, and that's why he was so successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't you can't if you make it too simplistic, you get like a TLC show.
Exactly, and we've talked about that a number of times, Ethan, and I think we've pointed out examples where the simplistic argument, you know, nothing is that easy. And when movies try to do that, I think you're not giving the audience enough respect. And the audience, I think, can turn against a movie that is overly simplistic for a complex situation very, very quickly. But Vinterberg maybe even takes it a step further, where he unveils complexities that aren't immediately apparent to the viewer.
Yeah, exactly.
That is definitely what I enjoyed. Perhaps I think in all three, that was such a sticking point for me, and that's why I really really liked Thomas Vinterberg. But without further ado, let's dive into chronologically the first film of the three that Vinterberg filmed, and that is The Celebration. Ethan, would you like to give, I guess, a quick summation of this movie?
Yeah, I would. So the celebration is the first of the Dogma '95 cinema movement, started by a number of Danish directors. Um, uh, it is about a rich family who celebrate their father's 60th birthday at his very rich home, and he has like an entire. He's insanely rich. And also, something looming over their heads is that they're so the father's children all gather to his house, um, but one of their siblings has committed suicide in the family. So it starts this very weird undertone, and one of the children start to hint at something that the father might have done.
So, Dogma 95 is kind of this, I guess, philosophy that filmmakers kind of with these role set with a certain role set, it kind of forces you to work more true to your own vision, as opposed to maybe like a production um, swayed type of movie. And Ethan, being as though you're a filmmaker yourself, has there ever been an allure to you, a movement like Dogma 95?
No, not really. I technically it was kind of a failed experiment because 2004 they decided they're going to jump ship because it kept producing like very similar results.
Mm-hmm.
But there's not really much like it in the film world. it was a very short burst of creative integrity by a couple of filmmakers from a specific country who just really wanted to make the films that were unique to the world of cinema.
Yeah, and you can kind of see the obvious evolution of Vinterberg with the next two movies, but in that the production quality is obviously there, and that you can tell a lot of the rules that kind of limit your production quality being thrown by the wayside. And I think it's almost the spirit of what they were trying to accomplish is like you said, creative integrity, and the fact that Vinterberg didn't lose that. It is like it's the best of both worlds to kind of like, okay, well, we'll take out these kind of rules that limit lighting, sound quality, because that is gonna kind of really change the viewing experience and allow a larger audience to kind of explore my creative vision, which I think is a really good combination. But I will say the celebration for being a Dogma 95 movie and that being very, very hard to produce came out pretty well, I would say.
Very freaking well. I love this movie a lot.
Exactly. And honestly, some of the deficiencies that like playing by the Dogma 95 rules are not super apparent. Obviously, the picture quality is something that is just you can tell it's slightly grainier than other films that came out in the late 90s, but and sometimes the lighting you can tell, but besides that, I think it hit a really fine balance as far as what was able to be done with the cinematography, because they're using a handheld camera, and also just still being able to capture everything else that you would expect in a major motion picture. But I think the thing that really overshadows everything is the hard hitting story that is the absolute core of this movie, and I think the big bomb drop essentially is what is the sticking point for this movie. Is that how you feel as well, Ethan? Was that a huge
Yeah.
moment for you when the reveal happens?
Well, yeah, the thing is that, like, again, it's like a slow descent towards that.
Mm.
There's a group of characters who gather together, and like obviously you don't know what's about to happen. There's one of the siblings, one of the sons. He's kind of rowdy. He's kind of loud. Kind of racist too. And like these, and just one of the siblings starts to accuse his dad on his birthday that he is the main contributor to his sister's suicide, and it starts this trickle effect of chaos. And when when the big reveal happens that it was what truly happened with the suicide note, it's it's pretty satisfying. I'm not gonna lie, because obviously you by that point you kind of hate the father. He's kind of pompous
Mm-hmm.
and full of himself, and it's so realistic, but it works so well in being kind of entertaining and investing. What one thing I wanted to point out was the one of the other Dogma 95 directors is Lars von Trier,
Mm-hmm.
who does the complete opposite of Thomas Vinterberg. He takes very real situations and makes them some of the most depressing movies ever made, like Dancer in the Dark.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that Vinterberg can make this type of story so fast paced, the editing is so good, and it's so fast paced, and it's so well paced that you feel every second of the situation.
Absolutely. There's a mounting tension that builds up, and when the main character, the son who is kind of sticking up for the deceased sister, gives the speech, you expect it, and for a moment, it's a momentary kind of release of tension where you think that is going to be like the highest point, and then momentary release, and then it continues to build up and up and up and up after the fact, and the way that it's paced throughout, and the characters you mentioned, the rowdy slash racist brother. What a colorful character, first and foremost. He was really kind of, I don't know, he was very entertaining, is the best way to put it. That was spectacular. And then a little point, I think Lars von Trier, the director that you mentioned, director of Dancer in the Dark, I believe, and I haven't seen it to confirm myself, but I believe his movie The Idiots is another Dogma 95. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, Ethan.
That was the second one. That was the second Dogma film.
Oh, okay. What do you happen to know what his was? Do you mean in order, the Celebration, and then The Idiots, or his second?
No, it's the second Dogma film. It's the Celebration and then the Idiots.
Gotcha. Yeah. So both contributors to this, and honestly, I mean, both pretty well-known directors. I think Harmony Korine, those three, those are really the only ones that I know on a name basis. So it was definitely interesting that those people were involved, because of the three, their styles are, I mean, they're the most unique directors. Definitely, in the top 10 most unique directors that I know, and definitely not going to be for everyone, but for the people that appreciate this movie, I think you're really gonna appreciate a Thomas Vinterberg, Celebration, The Hunt, and Another Round. But like you said, the editing and the pacing of this movie kept me engaged the whole time. And I thought it was very interesting for the son, not only how the speech comes about, but you can read his emotions going into it, and that he's very conflicted, and you have no idea. And it plays with the perception of the audience in a way that you don't anticipate this very wealthy, well-respected man who has tons of people coming to his house for his birthday to be accused of something as terrible as what he's accused of. And I think
Yeah,
that is a huge point within this movie.
yeah. Like, but as soon as the accusations start coming out of Christian, that's his name, Christian. Fantastic character, but once the accusations start coming from him, certain shades of him start to come out. Similar to probably what would happen if you would accuse someone of something heinous.
Absolutely. And it's really interesting. He is able to, Venterberg, capture like various arcs throughout all of the characters, and it all kind of revolves around their belief of the accusation, and for the siblings at least, and then the father, he has like an arrogance to him, and then as the favor or the odds start to stack against his favor, then we kind of start to see this almost vulnerable character. He seems very impenetrable at the beginning of this, and towards the end, the the kind of vulnerability that we feel for him, it left me conflicted because part of me felt bad for him, and then another part of me, you realize that how heinous an act this is, and it is hard to feel sympathy for a character like that. And that's a beautiful thing to capture for any director, where you can really play with the emotions of the audience like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was there any points of this movie that you found really interesting and wanted to discuss, Ethan?
I mean, the characters are what really hold this. The editing and the way everything is held together with the characters and what's going on with their lives outside of the actual celebration. Like the what's his name? The rowdy one.
Mm.
He is like having an affair with one of the waitresses, despite the fact that he has a wife and kids, and he accidentally impregnated the waitress, and so like you start to get certain shades of other people, and like this guy is you start to understand that this guy is kind of awful as a person, and yeah, you kind of feel satisfied by what happens to the father, because he probably did something most heinous. But I feel like all of these people are not very good people.
I agree. We kind of get that. I feel like, part of what Vinterberg might be trying to communicate is that when you kind of inflict pain on other people, it's actually remarkably easy to not be affected yourself, despite how affected the person that you're kind of wronging is hurt from that decision.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you get that a lot from the father, because like I said, he is just completely tries to discredit the son, and that relationship in and of itself is it's so intriguing, because not only for him to have done what he was accused of doing is just like it kind of mind blowing. The majority of the population would look at that and say that is sick and disgusting and diabolical and every negative descriptor you could think of. Like,
Yeah,
it seems like a very vital kind of innate part of the relationship between father son and father daughter is missing, because he's also just willing to let his son flounder and take the heat for accusing him of something so heinous, without being able to prove it immediately, and just like make his son look like an absolute fool, to kind of save his own skin. And that was really interesting to watch, and made this premise such a brilliant one.
yeah. The premise is brilliant, which I he does like we said, it's a ripple effect. It's such a perfect like story for to get so many emotions out of you, and that's some of my favorite filmmaking out there. Is just when um, when a filmmaker does try and make tension out of like one simple event or one accusation that starts this whole thing of chaos. And like I said, Martin McDonough even recently did that with Banshees of Inisherin,
Mm-hmm.
and with three billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri. He does that so well as well. But yeah, the celebration is one of my favorite examples of that.
Absolutely. And because you have to flesh everything out so well and think through it just with so much detail thrown in there. Because, a story like this, you could kind of very quickly blow through and there'd be mild interest, but once you add layers upon layers to it, that's when it really starts to shine through. The brilliance starts to shine through. Let me ask you just one, like, very, I think, memorable shot of this movie is when Christian is about to give his first speech, and he has two envelopes with him, one yellow, one green, I believe.
Yeah.
And this is just literally, I, just completely hypothetical. But do you think that had the father chosen the other envelope, that he wouldn't have gave the speech? Do you think Christian did actually leave the reveal up to chance?
Um, it's a possibility, but it's also possible that he just wrote two different accusation letters.
Yeah, that is it's not integral to the story at all. It's just kind of interesting to think about, especially when you think about the weight kind of levied against the father with it. Part of me wants to think, just because of how Christian felt about it, I think you could make an argument either way, just because he did seemingly want to kind of just like, I want to rip the band-aid off and then be done with it. He might have wanted like to take the nerves off of, or the pressure off the situation. Maybe just having two and one of them didn't have the accusation, that it made him feel a bit more comfortable, that he's like, well, I might not have to give this speech today, but also he did seem so dead set on getting this message across that it definitely is hard to tell. How did you feel about you were very content with the ending, I believe you said, but you thought it wrapped everything together very well?
It wrapped everything up beautifully. Just like it's the aftermath of the chaos,
Yeah,
and
it's
just everything starts settling down again.
exactly. And this is something that I have found Vinterberg is also very, very good at, and he kind of likes to, at least with these three films, include, is the camaraderie that you build after going through these very traumatic events are very well illustrated in all three of these movies. And I felt like the siblings coming out of this, definitely they have a maybe even stronger bond than they did previously.
Yeah, could be. And I guess it's like, in the end, it's good because they've now stopped like worshiping their father, who's rich and powerful, and just started to be their own people.
True, true. Ethan, do you have any final thoughts on this, or anything you would like to add?
Um, Honestly, when I first watched this movie, I gave it a 4.5 because I thought the only thing that I didn't like was the camera work. But honestly, I got the Criterion Blu-ray for the movie, and I rewatched it on that. And honestly, I think the high grain and like the home video style of camera work, I think it actually really helps to give you a sort of fly on the wall perspective of just this whole situation. And I think in that, it has boosted my rating as well. So I absolutely love this movie. It's probably one of my all-time favorites at this point. So I give it a 5 out of 5.
Well, there you go. And I do, the graininess, like you said, I would agree with you. It definitely adds like a novel perspective to it. It feels more intimate. I'm close behind you. I'm at a 4.5 out of 5. Really enjoy this movie. Very impactful. Has a lot of weight to it, and definitely should check out. And it's very important as far as Vinterberg's career and in even the Dogma 95 kind of time period. So if you're interested in either of those two, it's a must watch without doubt. The next movie that we're going to cover has Mads Mikkel in it and is a movie about him being a kindergarten teacher, and seemingly the most likable teacher of the bunch. His best friend has a daughter who is in his kindergarten class, and there seems to be a very, very complex mix up in which he is accused of unsavory behavior with that little girl, and it slowly completely unravels into something where there's multiple accusations, and the town has essentially turned against him, and we see how that resolves itself. And also a huge kind of emotional weight to that story is Mads Mikkel's his interactions with not only the town, but his own girlfriend, his son, and his ex-wife. And not only that, but his best friend, whose daughter is in that class. This was a tremendous movie, I have to say, right out of the gate.
Tremendous movie as
I,
well.
I so without, or to stop beating around the bush, he is accused of touching the little girl,
Yeah.
and this very, very touchy and taboo subject matter is again handled superbly well by Vinterberg.
Yeah. Um, this is like the opposite, where of the celebration, where an accusation ends up being correct. Here, it's a lie that is spread.
Absolutely, and that's the brilliance of kind of watching all three of these movies, is to get both perspectives, or I guess both scenarios rather, not both perspectives, but you do get the opposite side in a different scenario. It is so interesting because as you're watching that, it's very, I mean, tell me if you agree, Ethan, but I found it tremendously easy to put myself in the shoes of Mad's character and think, what the hell would I do if these accusations were levied against me?
Yeah. Especially since like alliances are his alliances run short, very not quick. It's simultaneously quick and slow. That's what's crazy to me, is that Vinterberg managed to make it so realistic the way that the lies spread. It's somehow simultaneously slow yet very quick in how the lie spreads. Um, and honestly, the way it's done is, I would call, a near perfect.
Yeah, it is so very good. And a saying just kind of like popped into my head that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and that is seemingly what the front half of this movie deals with, where the owner of the kindergarten is rightfully taking these accusations very, very serious, but she has certain, I guess, I don't know if you would call them biases, but like logical deficiencies that kind of allow her to involve people and do questioning in a way that kind of corrupts the actual investigation process, and kind of blinds her to the chance that the accusations might be false, and is very quick out the door to inform people and kind of, I guess you could say, slander Mad's character very, very quickly. And I think hearing that from the teacher, she automatically gets, there's a respect and a trust towards her. And if she is delivering the message, it makes it much easier to believe her as opposed to if they were looking into it at the origin of the, I guess, where the inflection point happened. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
And I I just thought that was so. This movie feels very realistic, also, and how you mentioned that the information spreads both quickly and slowly. That felt so realistic to what you would expect to happen in a quote unquote small town, and that even in America. I mean, obviously, this is not set in the U.S. of A. But if this happened probably in your town, Ethan, or mine, I feel like we would see something very similar as to how parents in the whole town would react.
Yeah. My town's probably a little too big for that,
And that's true.
but
Do you
um,
have like a almost like a neighborhood, or like a school district for you that's closer in proximity, or people kind of spread, or is it very compact?
well, I feel that I mean, I feel like that could happen in high school. Absolutely. Like any school system could someone will tell a lie and then um, that lie spreads. And the beauty about the hunt is that it presents a moral standing where you're not really upset at the person who tells the lie, because the person who tells the lie is a 4-year-old girl. She doesn't know any better. So like you almost feel kind of bad for her because she probably feels guilty for what she started. And but what makes it work is that you can almost believe the people who are spreading that lie because Mads Mikkelsen's character had some trouble in the past, and he's now getting his life back up. With his girlfriend, he is reunited with his son. He's got a job at the kindergarten. Like he's getting his life back together after after being down in the crapper, and then it's all of a sudden falling apart again. But you understand why.
Exactly. And so I was right there with you. Like the girl who levies the accusation, is you're like, you honestly can't be angry at her whatsoever. And there's a varying degrees of mixed emotions when it comes to all of the parents, where my initial reaction, because I like Mad's character and because you feel very confident in the fact that he is not guilty, I felt angry at them initially, and then I almost take a step back as I continue viewing, and a part of me is like, if I was in their shoes, I don't know if I would be acting differently whatsoever. And that's the beauty of the entire movie.
The realism of it, the realism of the moral complexities of it all. Vinterberg understands that so well, and during a time where, um, nowadays we have a lot of like internet drama. But back in 2012, that was not nearly as prevalent because the internet was not nearly as prevalent as it is now. um, it was still prevalent, just not as much. Um, and the fact that he is able to make such a realistic uh, moral standing of this situation, uh, so realistically too, 11 years ago, it's impressive.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it felt like the timing of it was perfect, I think, because it was a time, it was like a very important point of the evolution of parents being aware of this and taking it seriously and trying to get ahead of it. You know, it was very much in the knowledge. Um, not to date myself, but I was in high school and, you know, parents were, concerned about stuff like that because they were aware of it. There was, a school very close to me where like accusation after accusation after accusation. I'm almost positive they had like over 3 teachers in at one high school, which it was like a bigger high school than ours, but they were getting busted for this, and people were were on the lookout for stuff like this, and were rightfully pissed off when these people were brought to justice. Um, so not only that, but like you said, the realism is just perfect in how he's able to depict these characters who are kind of conflicted by something that's so serious. And the person, or character rather, that was really, really interesting to me was Theo's character, who is the father of the girl who made the original statement. Also, the actor who's the kind of rowdy brother in the celebration, who, along with Mads, was just like a really almost perfectly written character. I really enjoyed him in this movie.
Yeah. The guy's name is Thomas Bo Larson. I think he's the only actor to be in all three of these movies. Um, but yeah, he does a great job playing kind of the least rowdy that he's ever been. Just a guy whose daughter, like you want he wants to believe his daughter very badly.
And their initial face to face Mads and Theo's character was brilliant. Like I loved that whole interaction where he's almost, it almost seems like he, I don't know if he had forgotten because, or was so groggy that it wasn't like in the front of his mind, or just confused as to how to react immediately. But he starts very mellow and then works his way up to like a fever pitch of like, oh wait, this is the guy who is supposed to have done this terrible thing to my daughter. I want to kill this guy, and tells him so. Like, if you did this, I'm gonna kill you. And that scene was just perfectly written, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's the church scene, which is
Mm.
fantastically acted. And then yeah, it's just so wonderfully done. And like there comes a time, yeah, there comes a point in the film where you're like, some of the stuff that this town does to him is kind of inexcusable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, again, like internet drama. Like it's kind of, it makes it worse when they they kill his dog. They just straight up a mysterious person in the town just kills his dog.
Yeah, that scene, that I was like, so, had so much rage in my heart. I don't know about you, Ethan. I don't know if we've ever discussed this, but scenes with dogs, pets, specifically dogs, but any pets really, when they get hurt or killed in a movie, that's like dropping the hammer in any movie. I mean, that has an immediate impact on me. I don't know about you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't. I'm not a big animal enthusiast, but there's something about killing animals like that just is so inhumane, especially to something that doesn't have a chance, really.
Mm. Yeah, something that can't, truly defend itself.
Yeah,
Feels unjust.
yeah,
There was a couple specific scenes where I thought there was really great writing, and also shots. The first one comes from writing. Mads Mikkelsen's character and Theo are best friends, and they have this kind of thing where Theo thinks that he can read Mads, to see when he's lying or fibbing. And that comes to a crescendo during the, I guess, Christmas Eve Mass. And I'm let me know if you picked up on this, but when Mads Mikkelsen's character is staring at Theo, do you think that was like, hey, I'm staring at you, I don't have any tells, like, I am telling you the absolute truth this whole time that I haven't lied? Like, was that kind of the way you read into that scene?
but yeah. Well, definitely, it's him trying to convince his friend that he did nothing wrong without trying to make the situation necessarily worse. The grocery store scene is another one that pops into my head,
Mm-hmm.
where that's one where he kind of snaps, and after he gets beaten up, he just wants his groceries, and he gets beaten up for it, and he goes back in and gets his groceries, and he breaks the guy's nose by headbutting him, which was crazy. That guy's got an iron forehead.
Yeah, that was like one of the first scenes where, like, I had like a little fist pump where I was like, yeah, like I was really rooting for Mad's characters there, and it felt like a little victory in the sense of it all. And like, I don't know how deeply you can read into it this way, but it felt like another action on his part where if he is to admit defeat there, it almost is like I'm going like you're reserving yourself to pay for a crime that you didn't commit. Like, I'm gonna face the consequences, and I guess I just won't shop here anymore, even though I didn't do it. But by doing so, if you look at that from the outside, you could say, well, he's like dead set on it, and it almost makes you think, I mean, he doesn't have a guilty conscience, and if I know this person who has probably had guilt about some specific thing in the past, but he doesn't feel guilt about this, maybe he didn't actually do it.
Yeah, which I mean, it's clear that he didn't the whole time. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the little girl had a crush on him, and I guess uh, to try and I guess retaliation, maybe, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know. Like, you don't know why she did it. She probably doesn't know why she did it.
Yeah. It,
In fact, there might be a piece of dialogue where she said, "I don't know why I did it. It was kind
I
of
think
silly."
I think she did say that, but and that's like very impactful because Theo sees him coming out. But he's not fully aware of this. But I feel like people in the grocery store who maybe saw that whole scene play out. You have to look at that, and it should or I would think it would be such a crazy scene where it would make you question, despite the fact that they are dead set on the fact that he committed these at that time, something like that would have to really make you reconsider. And the next kind of very integral part to this story, which brings us all the way to the end of the story, that was captured beautifully, was looking at the older brother of the girl who made the accusations, and you can see the pain that he has looking at her while he still believes this. And throughout, we get another very important scene where they are celebrating Mad's son's birthday, 16th birthday, which is very important for this kind of town, as it's when you can go on your first hunt. And
Yes. The name, that's where it gets the name, is the hunt.
which I was like, okay, I'm wondering where this comes in, because there's little bits about hunting, but it wasn't super, super in there until the very end, which, in further spoilers, the kid he looks at Mads, and you can almost tell that he is still not okay with him, and it leads to the ending scene in which he tries to shoot at him during the hunt, which I think it very clearly, concisely, and efficiently kind of gets out the thought process that some people are never going to fully believe that he's innocent. And that is maybe one of the great injustices about situations like this. What were your
Thing
thoughts?
is, well, the thing is, it's a shadowy figure
Mm-hmm.
who's got the gun up to him. So you really don't know. You really don't know who it is, but you're absolutely right on that. Where it's conveying the fact that there are some people who are just never going to believe him again. You have no clue who that's what's brilliant about the ending, is that it just presents this realism, this hard hitting realism, because it's kind of a sad ending in a way, that there are just some people who are stuck in their own belief that um, you could be anonymous and yet still have your own beliefs, and this one person almost acted out on them.
Exactly. Um, like there's just so many little pieces, little nuances to a situation like this that this movie kind of brought to light to me. And that is the most powerful and specific one that you can tell Vinterberg is a very thoughtful director, and he captures the entire story.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think we covered all of like my favorite scenes. Ethan, is there any final thoughts or anything you would like to add about the hunt?
Um, I guess I'll touch on the one where the little girl is telling the teacher about the lie. Um, I really like the way that the movie is shot incredibly well. That's the difference between the celebration and the hunt, is that like the hunt is Vinterberg at his most prestigious in terms of filmmaking, just because he gets like these nice wide angled shots, and his camera movement is so raw and yet so focused and so um, attentive that you just, again, fly on the wall. Not to the same degree as the celebration, but you just really focus on these characters. But I absolutely love this movie. It when I first watched it, it was and still is one of my favorite movies.
Absolutely. Ethan, I'll have you go first. What did you rate this one?
I give it a 5 out of 5.
I'm again slightly behind you. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. I really, really liked it, and emotionally impactful, and you really care about all the characters, and even the ones that you get upset about.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So they like Theo's character. He takes actions, and but you still care about him, and he still seems like a genuinely good guy, despite him being tossed into the ringer with the situation, and it shows great direction to be able to accomplish that.
Yeah. Great direction.
Ethan, the third and final movie, it is a Best International Feature Film of the 93rd Academy Awards. Another round. Would you like to do the honors and kind of summarize this one?
Yes, one of the only two wins that I agreed with that year. So another round is about these four high school teachers who are kind of bored with their lives and decide to, during their day to day life, drink alcohol and see what that does to them, how it affects their social and physical life, and how it starts off really well and then comes crashing down.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and this film, something that it does really well is it allows things to kind of simmer, and through the pushing the envelope, for lack of a better term, with this experiment that they're doing, it allows the actual problems within their lives to come to the surface. Um, and that was really interesting, and I think a really great way to kind of push the narrative along.
Absolutely.
And it also it seems kind of really true to the subject matter, where you kind of feel like the characters are not only doing this to spice up their lives, but also as a distraction from the real problems that they're facing in day-to-day life, which makes it ironic that it ultimately pushes those problems to a breaking point. And to have such expert knowledge on the subject matter is the only way that you can really tell this story, to where like as I was watching this, it felt like, yeah, it seemed incredibly realistic, to where I would imagine this would be pretty damn close to how things would play out if someone was to try an experiment like this.
Yeah, it's realistic, but it's also insanely entertaining.
Mm,
Just from like again, this is probably his most like feel good movie
mm-hmm.
where he takes like again a pretty serious topic like alcoholism and he just plays around with it so well. I love again the camera movements like in The Hunt, but it's not the camera is not as I guess focused as The Hunt. It's more dynamic. The movement's more dynamic, and it creates a more freeing sort of film.
And what you said, I couldn't agree more with. That this feels the most lighthearted of the bunch, and it obviously it has emotional weight throughout, but it's almost I was gonna say celebratory, which is ironic. That's funny considering we talked about the celebration, which was pretty much anything but. But there is times in this movie, and which works brilliantly, where you become attached to these characters, and your spirits almost get lifted with them, and you feel like you're almost going on a journey with those characters at those high points. I don't know exactly how to explain that essence that this film was able to capture, but it almost makes you want to, like, you know have a joyous exaltation with them.
Yeah, exactly. You just um, it's just so freeing to watch these people.
And in a way that Vinterberg was able to do with the hunt, he can inadvertently bring you to a mindset that he's trying to critique. And one of that is, and I don't know how harsh of a critique he's trying to make. I think ultimately finding balance and moderation is one of the major kind of, PSAs he's trying to push. But he's also he is making commentary on the fact that not only in Denmark but other countries like the USA, there is like a lot of open-mindedness, and we look at extreme alcohol consumption. We kind of look at it with a blind eye, as though it's
Yeah.
a rite of passage and expected for teenagers and young adults to do it. And this really plays with the line of, because there's a line ultimately where people say, okay, that's too much. And this gives you the full spectrum where you can see, okay, this is acceptable, not acceptable. The the depth and the layers to this complex situation is dealt with really well.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, is that another round in the moment is incredibly fun, but when you start to think about it, um, the when you start to think about the end, which is just so incredible. I love that ending. It's just so, again, freeing and lively, and the dance sequence is so fun. And yeah, he dances pretty well, kind of well.
Much
Excuse me.
much better than I expected, I will say.
Yeah,
They kept
and
alluding to it, and I wasn't, and he impressed me still.
yeah, but there's like an underlying darkness to it where you like it's a cycle. Excuse me, sorry. Like alcoholism is a cycle where you just it just won't. He's starting to drink again, so it's just gonna continue.
You know, I, I in looking at it that way, like, because I will honestly, I was kind of ignorant to the thought that it was cyclical. But
Mhm.
looking at it that way actually makes the ending much more impactful for me.
Yeah,
And don't get me wrong, I still thought this was a great film, but honest to God, if I were to rewatch this film and kind of observe it from that mindset, I honestly think this movie as a whole would have been much more impactful for me, because I was conflicted in the celebratory nature, but that also was how he slipped into the dark times, for lack of a better term, in the first place. So I think you actually nailed it, Ethan, and I think that is what makes this movie so great.
yeah. Again, capturing that realism, yet making it so fun and investing to watch.
Especially because you look at it from a situational standpoint where it was ultimately like not being able to cope with the problems at hand, and that seems to be the situation at the end, where a grieving Mads Madskin's character is, I don't think he was emotionally or he didn't want to put that emotional weight on himself, and was able to just slip into a habit that had not really worked, but at least was a quick band-aid, but ultimately, was for the worse. But that adds a completely it's a much more weighty ending if you kind of look at it also as sad.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think there's something that really spoke to me during this film where when you feel a lack of confidence and when you don't feel like yourself, like when you go through the normal kind of roller coaster of emotions that we all do, and lack of confidence can strike anyone, and when you don't feel like yourself, it's very easy to look for something that could be a quick fix to that, because ultimately the actual fix, to kind of quote an old saying, it takes as much time to get healthy as it did to get sick. So when you kind of just compound upon like lifestyle choices that get you in a position where maybe you're feeling depressed or like you're lacking something, the easy thing to do is find a quick solution, but oftentimes the real solution is much harder than that. And
Yeah,
that's so damn true. And this movie is beautiful at depicting that.
absolutely.
What were I agree with you, Ethan, that the kind of camera work of this, it I was gonna say, and you said it as I was thinking about it, but it felt insanely freeing. And I love the way that he kind of played with the picture looked brighter as well. And how he was able to visually tell this story was amazing, because you can like literally the sky is bright, everything looks good during the good times, and then you get this kind of like dreary feeling and enclosed spaces when these tight situations, for lack of a better term, start to you that you're faced with them. What other kind of things were you very impressed with from this film?
Um, Trying to think because I feel like we've hit all the beats of I think what makes this movie so good. I mean, like editing goes without saying is fantastic, similar to um, the other two films. I will say the the black the edit to black screen and text is could work in context, but I feel like should have been done up a little better. I think um, because there's not a lot of context as to who he's talking to or what they're talking about. Sometimes, I guess that's my only complaint. I feel like in context it could work, in better context it could work, but I guess that's my one gripe with the film.
Could you just remind me of that in context what you were alluding to?
So like there will be a scene where someone's writing something on a typing something on a computer,
Oh yes, yes.
and it goes to black. The screen goes to black, and somebody's narrating the um, the text that's being texted on the black screen, and you see the text, and it's just like not as nuanced or as simultaneously not as nuanced as I'd liked it to be, and as clarified as I wanted it to be.
Yeah, I honestly I think there would, you could kind of just quickly, well not quickly, you could do that another way and it would be just as effective, if not more. You could have the someone at the computer typing it and also kind of explaining what they're adding, and you would get the same effect. Um, I kind of liked honest to God, I am the revelation of that ending, because that contextually is really the only one that makes sense. And it's just I think it gives credit to the way that Vinterberg kind of depicted that ending, where it feels like a very joyous moment, and one that you should be rooting for the characters and with them. It makes so much sense now that I look back, that I'm honestly, I can't believe I missed it. Because and there's even like a kind of introduction to it, because one of the teachers ends up giving the student alcohol to deal with his oral exam, and has some himself, and that should have really foreshadowed that they weren't fully done with their addiction.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like a bonehead now after after missing it.
I mean, you got it now. So
Yeah. I really like this one. But and we'll kind of, my rating may increase with a further viewing, and I honestly think, I look at this in an even better light, just knowing that, which makes this much more debatable in my mind. But I had this rated the lowest of the three, and Ethan, I was
they do as
wondering,
well.
you did too.
Yeah.
I kind of want to pick your brain. Why did you feel that way?
I think The Hunt and The Celebration are two movies that are just more impactful and more memorable than Another Round. I think Another Round is very memorable and fantastic, but I feel like The Hunt and The Celebration are how to do bubbling chaos in the best way. And they're movies that I can come back to so easily, so often. Another Round is one that is really great, but there are like it's not as interesting as The Hunt or The Celebration inherently, in my opinion. Um, but it's still an incredible movie.
I agree with everything you said. And I think, looking from this, from the perspective of the Academy, why do you feel, with them at least, this was the most successful? Do you think this was, it wasn't as sticky a subject material, and I guess, this was impactful for subject material that they could understand and didn't feel as, I don't even know what word to describe. I guess icky with watching. What is, what's your opinion on that? Because I know you definitely have your opinion on the Academy, and the way that they kind of look at films that we
Mhm.
probably share.
Well, I think The Celebration is was way too small and way too avant garde for them to uh, nominate it,
Mm-hmm.
especially at the time, because it wasn't in the perspective of the Academy. It wasn't too long ago. I mean, um, it's the film is older than me, so it's it's kind of an old movie, but it was way too small and way too avant garde for its time to pick up enough steam to get an Academy Award. And The Hunt got a nomination,
Mm-hmm.
but you're probably right in that they didn't give it the win because it was very dark and handled subject material that was very dark in a way that was um, not exploitative at all, but um, used for investment in a story, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And and also uh, Another Round came out in 2020, which is possibly one of the driest years in cinema history in terms of the quantity and quality of films.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's almost nothing that came out that year because for very obvious reasons.
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't know about you, Ethan, but like, going back maybe to like 2000, like that is the biggest drop off in like the number of films I've seen from any year. It's like I've seen like maybe 5 or 6 from that year. It's just there's not, and I'm sure there's some really good movies from that year that I just
There's a
haven't.
couple of great ones. There's a couple of great ones.
I yeah.
But yeah, I get what you're saying though.
Yeah. So
It's not 1999 good.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So Ethan, do you have any final thoughts on another round?
No, I love it as well. I just it's Thomas Vinterberg, insanely good at making movies. I feel like one more great film, and he has the potential to become one of my all-time favorite directors
Hmm.
because he's just so consistent. He's more consistent than Robert Eggers, someone like Robert Eggers, who has made 3 films, and I prefer the 3 films of Vinterberg than the 3 films of Eggers.
Wow.
Obviously, Vinterberg has made more, but I just think he's a master of his craft, and I can't wait to see what he does next. I give this a 4.5 out of 5.
Yeah. I and again, I missed the ending, but I still really appreciated this. But basically what I'm trying to say is with a rewatch and kind of looking at the ending through a lens of what it's truly trying to depict could easily bump this up, but I'm at a 4, you know,
Mm.
even without that knowledge. And I'm totally with you, Ethan. I'm very interested to see what he does next because I think coming off the heels of an Oscar win, people are going to be anxiously awaiting, and there's possibly going to be more eyeballs on this next film than ever. I would
Mm.
I would be willing to say.
And also, rest in peace, his daughter.
Whoa! I did not know that. When did his daughter pass away?
His daughter died a few years ago from a car crash. It was he his Oscar speech involved her, and it was very sad.
Oh,
It was very
jeez.
sad, but I think he deserves it. I think seeing him win that Oscar makes it more satisfying, knowing that he probably would have made his daughter proud. So,
Exactly.
he's a freaking amazing filmmaker.
I completely agree. So just a little side note to kind of break away from the 3 films. Oscars are obviously coming up, and as we just discussed, one international feature film. Have you viewed any of the? I guess aside from All Quiet on the Western Front, have you viewed any of them? And if so, have any impressed you?
No, and I'm doing it out of spite. No, honestly, I'm just gonna do the best pictures. I don't want to go out of my way to watch any of these movies, and it really is a little bit out of spite because I think most people can agree that they did, in fact, miss one. They snubbed it pretty hard,
Decision to
which
Leave.
would be Decision to Leave, my favorite movie of last year. They snubbed both of my favorite movies of last year, Decision to Leave and Nope. They didn't give a
I
single nomination to anyone.
see. I thought that would be at the very least. That would have got best original screenplay. And I will be completely honest with you. I didn't realize that it didn't get nominated, but I'm shocked that you revealed that to me, honestly, because I'm with you. Um, and I thought it was arguably it's on the level of Get Out, in my opinion. It is,
I agree.
and
I think
if
it's better than Get Out.
I was just about to say, like, honestly, I wouldn't. Yeah, you saying that, I don't have an argument to that. I think it comes down to preference. And if I were to watch Nope again, I could easily see myself agreeing with you. They're like razor close in my mind, and but I also think you can make the arguments that he progressed in a lot of really integral marks that you look for in directing. I thought the cinematography was maybe as good as any of his movies. The story, like the screenplay, I thought was tremendous. I thought that was easily going to get nominated. Uh, I guess I'm surprised. Was there anything else that really stuck out that you're like, damn, how did they miss Nope on this one? And do you,
Cinematography,
yeah, I thought it was his best cinematography yet. Um,
yeah, easily.
you know the, and I don't, and I would actually, this is just a really nuts and bolts type question, just because I'm not sure by definition what you consider. I think the strongest shots from Get Out might be more memorable, but I don't know. I want to ask you if this would even be classified as cinematography or what. Do you remember the scenes from Get Out where he sinks into the chair and he's kind of looking at things from like a far away view?
Oh yeah, like when he's in the sunken place.
Exactly. Do you
Well, yeah,
is that considered cinematography?
yeah. Well,
Okay.
cinematography is like the camera, how you frame it, and how you light a scene.
Okay.
That's what it encompasses. And the visual effects are how the sunken place is visualized in terms of like how do we make this effect for
Okay.
this shot.
Yeah, so I mean that one really stuck with me, but there's also really memorable shots from Nope to where I didn't feel like anything was a step back, and I thought he made a lot of steps forward as well. So yeah, uh, I'm with you. I think there's a lot of. I was just really I was surprised by that. And do you think this is another situation where the fact that it's a horror movie, um, that the Academy has, I don't, they have a predisposition to look at those not as on the same level as other types of genres.
Um, well, I feel like a lot of people would disagree with me in saying that Nope deserved anything over, let's say, like Tar or Banshees. Well, I mean, like I love those two movies, but like The Whale
Mm,
or Everything Everywhere All at Once, those movies that I like. I mean, I love Everything Everywhere as well. But I just think Nope is great, and I don't think people see it that way. I've heard a lot of people say it's Jordan Peele's worst movie,
yeah,
which mm,
I don't get that.
I definitely disagree. I definitely disagree. Us is really good,
Mm,
but I think Nope has so many more interesting ideas than Us.
I agree with you. I liked Us. I thought it was really good, but I mean, currently, I prefer Get Out and Nope to Us. Do you feel the
Yeah.
same way? Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Of the Best Picture nominees, have how many have you seen all of them?
I still need to finish All Quiet on the Western Front, and then I need to see Avatar: The Way of Water.
Mm, okay. I I've seen All Quiet, but I need to see Avatar. I need to see Fablemans. I need to see After Sun. That one I'm very excited to watch.
Yeah.
And I also is it I think it's Women Talking.
Yes.
That one I need to see as
The
well.
the Oscars have been much much better than last year. I will give them that because nominations for Best Picture they nominated legitimately bad movies in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Don't Look Up is was one of the worst movies I saw that year, and then Belfast was fun in the moment, but when you start to think about it, it's not that good. And the fact that it won Best Original Screenplay over Licorice Pizza is garbage. Um, yeah, that category was just an absolute disaster. And that whole Oscar show was a disaster for very obvious reasons.
Mhm. Um, I will say, and obviously it was almost in mockery, but I had never heard more people talking about it in the office. Like generally, the day after the Oscars, I don't know. You like, there's not a whole lot of mainstream conversations that I would overhear, but the day after the Will Smith slap, no one could shut up about it.
Yeah. Nobody watched it live except for like a couple of people. I was one of the few people who actually saw it live
I
when it happened.
was it. Did you think it was scripted when you saw it, or did you kind of?
Yes. I legitimately thought it was scripted because I couldn't believe what just happened.
Let me ask you, and I think in the future we will do something between us if you're interested, of course, where we kind of go through some categories perhaps and say what we think should win. But what do you think will win? What do you think the Academy is most likely to give the Oscar to for Best Picture?
It could be a number. I think Fablemans has a chance. Um, Everything Everywhere All at Once has a very big chance. I think the one that I'm rooting for, and I think the one that has not the biggest chance, but definitely one of the bigger chances of winning, is the Banshees of Inisherin. I think
Mm.
that one it has a better it has a bigger chance at winning than Tar, and then it's a movie that I loved. So that's probably the one that I'm going to be rooting for because I loved Tar more, but I don't think it's going to win. I don't think it has a chance. It's too avant-garde and art housey um, to say that it'll win over, you know, like a sappy drama like The Fablemans or a beloved movie like Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is probably the most beloved movie of the year.
Oh, I agree. I mean, people are just they love that movie, and just because I haven't followed the Oscars this closely ever, I don't know whether that I don't know if that plays in its favor or not. I really don't know. Like from your experience, if a movie has that much adoration for it, does that ever work in its favor?
Well, it worked with Parasite.
Mm.
I feel like it worked with Parasite. Coda winning came out of nowhere. I did not expect Coda to win Best Picture last year, which is stupid. I got kind of upset at that because it was one of the only two movies I didn't watch from that last year. I just died a little inside from that. Um, but who knows? My prediction is probably the Fablemans,
Hmm.
and my pick is Banshees.
Yeah, and I haven't seen it yet, but I felt as though Fableman's had a very good chance for the simple fact that Steven Spielberg is the director,
Yeah.
and I think that's definitely gonna increase its chances. Um, and I wonder because like with Parasite, and and I don't know, maybe this is I'm going too deep down the rabbit hole, but just the fact that it was an international movie was able to almost swing all of the hype behind it to actually use it to its advantage, where this being I think filmed in America. I'm actually not 100 well filmed in America, that it might have the opposite effect on everything everywhere. That's my initial thinking. But I think from a mainstream perspective, that is the one that's like the people's choice, I guess.
Yeah. If it wins, I will not be upset.
Me neither. I honestly I thought it was I think it's still in my top 3 of the year. One that I saw recently was Triangle of Sadness, and I went into that completely blind. Like, I think I had literally just seen the poster, and that's all the knowledge I knew going into it, and did not expect the plot to be what it was. And that was a very interesting movie for sure. Did you enjoy that one as well?
I thought it was great.
Yeah, so it's neat to see a movie like that get nominated, but I think ultimately that one does not have much chance. But who knows? Maybe it'll be the dark horse that wins.
It won the Palme d'Or.
Oh,
It won something.
I did see that. And do you ever like? I wonder how frequently do Palme d'Or winners get not nominated. That has to happen sometimes, but I wonder if it's
Yeah,
quite frequent.
it's probably quite frequent.
Who do you know? Is it critics that vote on the Palme d'Or?
Might be critics. I'm not sure because obviously the Academy has their. They have the Academy. They have the officials that pick a winner, and it's so much fun. The Oscars are honestly kind of a love hate relationship because there are points where they make the right decision, but I've been following that. This is the fourth year I've followed the Oscars, and they have not. They've rarely made good decisions, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So maybe this will finally be the year.
Well, and the only reason I can nod in agreement is because public opinion from people like you who are very invested in film and watch the film, have an appreciation for film. You are you're in the majority opinion of people who think that Oscars more often than not get their choices wrong, and I've seen numerous takes on why that is the case, and kind of just critiquing the people who make the decisions and their kind of view, and that they're kind of like a really small subset of what a movie fan is at this time. But
Mhm.
I think a lot of people agree with you, and hopefully it is at a turning point. But I don't know if they've actually made any adjustments to get to just what is the best.
I'll say that a lot of people don't like the Oscars because they nominate movies that nobody knows about.
Mm-hmm.
That's because most people only know like superhero garbage, big blockbuster action movies. So they're not gonna nominate Morbius. They're not gonna nominate Black Panther. They did nominate one nod for Wakanda Forever, but like the Batman did get nominated. Top Gun Maverick got nominated. Avatar got nominated. So just like that perspective, I say to those people, just like shut up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
And I'm
It's just such a strange perspective, in my opinion.
I'm actually compiling some statistics on box office success, and it has the box office successes are they're starting to bleed into the best picture nomination.
Yeah, Because we're
And
finally getting good blockbuster movies.
exactly. Like this year we have two movies that grossed over 1 billion with Top Gun Maverick and Avatar: The Way of Water.
Yeah.
And I just it makes you, and I would agree they were good movies. Well, I haven't seen Avatar, but Top Gun at least was, within like the top 10 movies I've seen of this year. So it's not like it didn't feel like
Yeah.
a BS choice.
Yeah.
But it does make you wonder, moving forward, if this is just kind of a blip in which that happens, or if it's going to push more towards that way where, Iron Man 15 and Avengers 10 are going to be nominated in the future.
Who knows? Like the last year they nominated pretty terrible movies. It was just a disaster. It was a horrible, horrible award ceremony. Especially because Amy Schumer was there.
Well,
That's how
she's, my favorite
talented.
comedian.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, don't you love how she talks about her private parts?
Well, I honestly, I just skip through those parts, so it's refreshing to have like a stand-up set that lasts less than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the funniest stand-up was Will Smith's stand-up.
Ethan, thank you for joining me today. Any any projects on your YouTube channel, which is down in the description below, you should check out. Any projects on the cusp? I know we talked about ones that you were working on. Do you have any time period that you're expecting to release something in the future?
The David Lynch ranking. I'm keeping on trucking with that one. Got more ideas on the horizon, so just look out for those. I thought I was gonna get the David Lynch ranking done last month, but that didn't happen. So I'm gonna try and get a video out this. I'm gonna try to get it out this month, and then maybe get another one out this month.
Speaking as a fan of your channel, I am anxiously awaiting it. I'm ready for more. So I'm excited to hear that, Ethan. Thanks for joining me today, man. It's been great.
It's been great.
And thank you for joining us. This has been Taco Movie Talks with Ethan. Thanks again, Ethan. That is all. And we will catch you on the flippity flip. Bye, y'all.